Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, May the 20th, and welcome to 7investing Live. This is our live stream event we host every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to put a spotlight on several of the stock market's most intriguing opportunities. I'm 7investing founder Simon Erickson, joined by our executive producer, Heather Horton. Heather, are you doing all right on this lovely Wednesday morning?
I am. It's hot in Virginia, but it's a lovely day.
A tough day to not have an AC working. I know how that goes being down in Houston. We're going to gut it out, though. We've got a pretty good show here today. In fact, Heather, I took a trip last week. I took a fun trip up to Dallas. I went to the Money Show Master Symposium conference, kind of a nice little gathering. A bunch of investors get together, talk about cool stuff, and gave a presentation called The Next Big Thing to Invest in. Today, we're going to walk through that presentation in an abridged version. But if you'd like to have the entire presentation emailed directly to you, we've got a link and a way that we can make that happen. If you visit 7investing.com/newsletter, with that link we've got right down there at the bottom, you can click on that one, I believe, right now. Put in your first name and your email address. It's as simple as that. I'll send you the complete recommendation, the complete presentation with all of the recommendations in it. Again, it's got 6 publicly traded stock ideas and 1 soon-to-be publicly traded stock idea that are organized into 3 themes, as you'll see here in a minute. But if you want the full version, 7investing.com/newsletter, check it out. But Heather, we're gonna jump into a little bit of it here today. It was kind of a fun presentation, a lot of cool stuff going on out there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. All right, let's get that up. And of course, that link will be in the show notes. So if anyone is looking for it.
Absolutely. So here we go. Here's a look into the next big thing to invest in. Really kind of code for finding 10 baggers. Next slide, we kind of talked about, what does a 10 bagger even mean? It's a stock that would return at least 10 times your money, right? You put in $1,000, you get out $10,000. You put in $10,000, you get out $100,000, adjust your numbers accordingly, but these can be game changers for your portfolio. And a lot of people are always asking me, well, Simon, how do I find a 10 bagger out there? What if you invested in NVIDIA or Palantir or Rocket Lab, these kind of companies that we're showing there? That's how you go out and you can find the 10 baggers. These are not just theoretical ideas. These are actual 10 baggers that we found on the 7investing scorecard. On the next slide there, you can kind of see how we've done on several of these companies, done very, very well. You can find all of those on our scorecard, 7investing.com/recommendations. You can see all of them. And then even cooler, Heather, there's a slide you can see that had a really neat milestone this last month where my average recommendation across the past 6 years of 7investing picks has now doubled in price, 106% absolute total return. So that's pretty cool. You can see the outperformance versus the broader market. Individual investing works. Looking for growth style investments certainly works too. And if you can find some 10 baggers out there, it can change your entire financial future. We track this very closely. You just showed the graph right there. This is kind of the consolidated returns over time. Notice those do not go straight up and to the right. Sometimes the market isn't always so happy. Gets a little grumpy sometimes like it did in 2022. But long-term investing does outperform the broader S&P index. That's why 7investing exists. That's why we make individual stock recommendations rather than just investing into an index. So I encourage you to check out the scorecard, check out all those recommendations that we talked about here. But let's first talk about how do you find the next big thing to invest in, right? For the purposes of this show here today and what we talked about in the Money Show's Symposium, it's not just, okay, jot down the tickers and then let me go find those stocks. It's more of the methodical process of how do you find a 10 bagger? What are the predictors to look for if you want to find a company that could be worth an order of magnitude or more? And I want to jump into this a little bit. This is kind of a fun little way to describe and frame the presentation itself. The first of the 3 predictors is to think differently about things. Back in World War II, there was a group called the Statistical Research Group, which was this think tank that was up in New York City. And their job was to figure out and to solve some of the hardest problems that they were facing in the wartime arena in Europe. And one of the problems that they were trying to solve was they actually saw all these bomber planes that they were sending out there, that they were coming back, and they were analyzing the number of bullet holes per square foot in the plane. And the first thing that the statisticians and the analytics team noticed immediately was, if you looked at it, they're in the middle part of the plane, the fuselage of the plane. That section and then the fuel system in the wings had significantly more bullet holes per square foot in the plane. Whereas the engine compartment right there in the front of the plane had significantly less, at least comparable to the rest of the plane. And the decision at hand for the SRG was, where should we put armor on the plane to improve their survival rates? Armor, of course, was going to be adding a lot more weight to the plane. They'd be a little bit slower and less nimble, but it would, strengthen the plane itself against enemy aircraft fire. And so the first thing when we looked at this was the team immediately said, well, goodness, look at how many more bullet holes per square foot we're getting in the fuselage and the fuel system. We definitely need to be putting more armor in those two sections of the plane. And it was Abraham Wald, famous statistician now, who looked at this in a different way. And he said, yes, I hear what you're saying, team, but I see this a very, very different way. These are the planes, remember, that are coming back that we're able to study. The ones that did not make it back. An enemy aircraft gun does not have any way of pinpointing exactly where it's going to hit on the plane. It's going to be statistically all over the place in a random distribution. But notice that the planes that are coming back have fewer bullet holes in the engine compartment. That's because they are not being hit on the planes that are coming back. The ones that did get hit in the engine are the ones that go down in the arena of combat, and we're not actually able to statistically look at it anymore. And thus the correct answer about thinking about this differently was to enhance the armor in the engine compartments of the plane rather than in the wings or in the fuselage. A different way of thinking about things. And the translation of this interesting example to the investing world is look for companies who are solving problems in different ways. Might be looking at the same information out there, might be looking at technologies out there and going about it in different ways, because survivorship bias is going to improve the chances of success of the companies that are not doing exactly the same things as everyone else or looking at problems in exactly the same way. So that's predictor number one, thinking differently. The second predictor is look for blue oceans. Look at this beautiful blue ocean out there. It looks like a nice, calm swimming pool. This is the kind of blue ocean you want to go competing in. There is no one else swimming in this blue ocean. This is one where there's not a lot of competition that you're going up against. You're able to look at your customers and say, hey, what features would you like me to use for this? What pricing would work best for you out there? What is something that we haven't considered that we might be doing? There's a lot more transparency, a lot more opportunity for companies that are competing in new markets where there's no one else that's already established. If you're going up against an incumbent that's been doing something for 100 years, good luck competing against them in price. The opposite of a blue ocean is a red ocean, where it's bloody and it's mean, and there's a lot of price that's getting rid of all the margins that you might be capturing as a company. But the companies that are swimming in the blue oceans, again, less competition, perhaps a new technology that's very innovative that no one else is looking at yet. These are the places where you actually capture excess profits and to grow incredibly quickly in a short period of time. And on that note, it's a perfect segue to the third predictor, which is look for the S-curves that are developing out there. This chart, if you're able to see it live, is the percentage of US households from 0 to 100% that have adopted new technologies that were introduced between the year 1900 and 2005. If you look all the way at the left-hand side of the graph, you can kind of see what are now commonplace technologies, the telephone, the automobile, electricity, radio, the refrigerator. And then on the right-hand side, you can see more modern ones, at least in the year 2005, such as computers and cell phones and the internet. Now look at the shape of how quickly they are adopted. It follows what we call an S-curve. At the first couple of years when a new technology gets introduced, it's less than 10% of the overall market. We call these early adopters, the people that are really forward-thinking, the ones that want to get their hands on the newest, coolest, most innovative thing. But they're not the majority. In fact, it takes several years later, typically on this chart between 5 and 10 years later, of the introduction of a new technology to really hit the middle part of the S-curve. And that's important because that's where the majority of the American households would adopt this in a very short period of time. And what happens if you have a lot of people that are adopting a new technology or a new product in a short period of time? Revenues go skyrocketing, profits and cash flows go skyrocketing, and guess what else goes skyrocketing? Stock prices of the companies that do those. So as we're going out there looking for the 10 baggers, we want to be early. We want to be in the first part of that S-curve right before it starts accelerating and you hit that inflection point of the percentage of US households that are adopting it today. So those three predictors, if we look at them kind of in tandem, thinking differently, blue oceans, S-curves, when we're looking for new ideas out there in the stock market and someone says, hey, Simon, what are you looking at today? What are you excited about? This is how I frame those problems. This is how I go out and find the stocks that I think are the next big. Heather, are we ready to jump in? Are we ready to start talking about the three themes where I see some opportunities in the stock market today?
We are. I love in this chart that in 2005, you were as likely to have a dishwasher as the internet.
Wow. Right.
I feel like the internet must be up there now with like the stove.
And it gets more exaggerated too, right? The technology goes faster. You see the curves are
Yeah, the
sharper on the
curves
right.
really do sharpen, which is fascinating how everything, and we know that things are getting faster and faster and faster. So your time to actually hit that S curve low is shortening. You got to keep your eye out for them.
So on that note, let's talk about three technologies that I think are in the early part of the S curve there. These are the three that we're going to talk about here today. Again, an abridged version here, we're going to give one stock idea per theme. If you want to see two stock ideas per theme and one bonus soon to IPO company, 7investing.com/newsletter. But the three we're going to talk about, quantum computing is the first one, AI agents, artificially intelligent agents, fully agentic, and then on-demand power. Those are the three that I want to chat about. Let's jump into quantum computing first and foremost. A couple more. Yeah, there we go. This is an entirely different technology than classical computing. Classical computing is defined as kind of the traditional way that we've done processing. It could be done on a CPU, on a GPU, on a lot of custom XPUs today. But a quantum processor is completely different, following a different type of technology than any classical computer can do right now. And why would you need a quantum computer? It's not just a faster computer. It is faster. But the reason that you would need this is there are certain problems we just can't solve today. It's going to take too much code and too much processing with too many inputs and too many variables for a classical computer to even solve. Even the fastest NVIDIA GPUs can't do this today. But a quantum computer is certainly able to do that. And so you've got a completely different technology going after the hardest to solve problems. Those might be in drug discovery, if you're patterning out molecules and how they're going to interact with each other. Could be for materials, new alloys you want to develop. We've done the best we can with the tools that we've had. Imagine if you could amplify that, turn these amps up to 11, use a quantum computer to do something really, really neat. And then this is why I think that we're starting to see the S curve of this. This used to be just an academic exercise. Right? I would go to the MIT conferences. You'd have really smart people talking about quantum computing. And then inevitably somebody would ask the question, well, who's using this today? And there'd kind of be silence and pin drops and crickets. And everyone said, oh, well, we're getting there. It's going to be 5 more years. Look at this today. McKinsey points out there actually are companies that are spending at least $10 million per year on quantum computing projects. And about a third of budgets today are at least spending $10 million a year on defining the problems or understanding the technology. This is significantly higher than where we were a couple years ago, right? Used to be people were just exploring with quantum. Maybe you tried it out a little bit like that. Now you've actually got budgets in place that you're starting to use for actual projects. And then couple $10 million a year, which is nothing, pocket change for the largest companies in the S&P 500 today. But then you've also got McKinsey saying, hey, quantum could deliver trillions of dollars in economic impact to companies a decade from today. Mostly in energy, mostly in pharmaceuticals or the financial industry and transportation. Coupling the two of those, something that's starting to get some momentum out there with a massive amount of an impact if you actually apply it correctly. This is going to be the middle of the S curve that's going to happen some point within the next decade, perhaps even in the next 5 years for quantum computing. And as you can see here from the Microsoft graphic, that's where when the applications start coming, we actually start putting these projects to work and scaling them up, whether that's materials, chemistry, or whatever else you're working on. That's where you get the bang for your buck. And so the company that I want to chat about for this one is one that's probably not on your radar right now. It's a company called Infleqtion. Heather, have you ever heard of this company before?
Only from you, and I've now looked into it. Haven't bought it yet, but it's such a cool company.
It really is. And I'm hoping that most people watching this show aren't already aware of this because I wanted to go a little bit off of the beaten path. That wasn't an immediately recognizable name. But the ticker on this one, INFQ, look at the revenue number, goose egg, $0 in revenue last year. This is a pre-revenue company that's already worth a couple $1 billion in the public markets. It just completed its SPAC IPO in February 2026. And here's the interesting thing. This is a different technology than classical computing, as quantum computing is already, but it's even a different technology than other quantum computing technology is today. Neutral atom quantum computing manipulates cesium atoms in a vacuum with lasers at room temperature. There's some important words in that bullet point right there. First of all, neutral atom. This is not involving ions. You heard about IonQ. You hear about ion trapping, you hear about spin states and different type of charged particles. That is not what this is. Cesium atoms in a vacuum with lasers. You do not have to have charged particles. That might improve the scalability of your system. And then the other thing is you're doing this at room temperature. A lot of quantum computers have to be super cooled, very, very, very low temperatures. And guess what? That requires a ton of power and isn't so good for your coherence times. But if you can have a neutral atom quantum running at room temperature, you might have better coherence and a more scalable quantum computer that you're building. So the idea, even though Infleqtion is at $0 in revenue, you've got a really smart CTO that's got a great background, his entire career doing this. You now have a publicly traded company that's gotten some big name financiers on board with this. And then look at this. You've actually developed the first steps of a partnership with NVIDIA, with which Infleqtion's Q-Link interface is using the hub to integrate quantum computers into NVIDIA's CUDA for dedicated tasks. What does that mean? It means CUDA directs where the traffic goes, which workloads get done on the GPU versus the CPU. And guess what else we also might have? We might have a QPU, or a quantum processing unit over here, for the hardest, most incredibly complex workloads. And again, why does NVIDIA want to do this? It's not displacing itself. You're still going to use GPUs for a lot of really hard things out there. But imagine if you could use GPUs in tandem, in parallel, with a processor that could handle even more complicated tasks. That's what Infleqtion's trying to do. You've got the early steps of a really big partnership with the most valuable company in the entire world. You've got a publicly traded company that's using a technology that's thinking differently than others out there. I think Infleqtion is certainly a stock that is no guarantee. It's not a slam dunk out there, but it's certainly worth a spot on your watch list.
Yeah, that room temp is such a, is anyone else doing that? I haven't heard of anyone else doing that.
Not at room temperature. There's you've got ion trapping. There's IonQ, doing that. A couple other companies, Continuum, that's doing that. You've got the superconducting quantum computers like Google's working on out there in California. I haven't seen anything that's doing this at room temperature with lasers yet.
That's really, really cool. And yes, you're right. Really hopeful for scalability.
Absolutely. So there's quantum. There's the first one we're going to talk about. Let's jump into theme number 2 here. This is AI agents. This is employing artificial intelligence and or RPA, robotic process automation, to handle tasks and core operations. A lot of these previously being done by human beings, now fully automated, whether that be customer service chatbots. You probably talked with an agent on a website. How can I help you? What answers can I answer for you? But even marketing intelligence, going out there and gathering information about how products are doing, or even using generative AI to run marketing campaigns, being done fully agentic now. Operational intelligence, of course, pulling information about your own processes and your supply chain, and then RPO using code to actually execute a lot of tasks out there. And so there you've got the picture of the switchboard on the left. You can kind of see how telecom used to be done a century ago by human beings connecting things. It's kind of the same idea of using agentic, fully automated at this world that we have today. And so our companies are using this. Next slide kind of shows some examples of how this is being used out there. You saw Salesforce. Mark Benioff says, hey, I'm cutting 4,000 people in my customer service group and reallocating their time, keeping them in the company, but they're going to be working in marketing or revenue generating roles because AI, is going to take over a lot of that customer service support for Salesforce, who's developing their own agentic AI. This is kind of neat. Mark Zuckerberg is building an AI agent to replace him, at least to help him be CEO today. Kind of neat when you've got the forward-thinking Mark Zuckerberg really embracing something like this. And then, of course, some statistical research from McKinsey shows that AI-driven personalization is not only enhancing customer satisfaction, but also providing a lift for revenue and reducing costs. I mean, there are actual business outcomes that make sense to do this. So let's look at AI agents. Where's the one we're going to talk about for this one? Oh, yeah, SoundHound AI. This is a neat one, right? This is kind of in the same vein, of large language models. What this is a conversational intelligence platform. Kevin Mohajir graduated with an electrical engineering degree from the University of Toronto in 2000. That's not just a footnote, that's an exclamation point, because the University of Toronto was a computer science program that was the very foundation of modern machine learning. Basically, AI today all came out of a hotbed of the research that he was doing and developing himself. But he always wanted it to be something that was vocal, right? This guy was way ahead of his time in the year 2000. His first company he started was called Midomi, which was actually just as smartphones were starting to catch on. If you go back to the year 2000, we're starting to kind of see the introduction in a couple of years of the iPhone, things that were smart. You could actually have an app that would recognize the song playing on the radio and then tell you what it was. Take that for granted today. It's so easy to just see that because you've got built-in consoles. But again, we're in the year 2000. It was recognizing the sounds and the words that were being spoken. He then kind of transitioned that to another app called Hound, where you could speak directly into your smartphone, just like Siri can do today, just like Alexa can do today. And you could actually ask questions that would immediately respond with answers. Again, things we took for granted 25 years ago were really, really innovative technologies. And he's spent the last 25 years making this conversational intelligence platform more accurate, better latency, lower cost than the big tech peers like Google and Amazon are developing today. He's been refining these algorithms for 25 years. And the question was always, where is the market going to make sense for something that somebody would want to speak rather than just type into your computer? I don't need this here on my desktop. I'm able to type it in directly on my keyboard, and that works just fine for me. But if you're in a car and you don't want to be using your thumbs or talking, you probably have a dashboard that can communicate with you. In fact, Hyundai, Honda, and Mercedes are already using SoundHound directly embedded in the dashboards of the cars that they're selling today. But look at this one, Heather. The new applications, this is what I would consider moving up market and getting a better bang for your buck. They made an acquisition of a company called Amelia AI, which is really, really good at conversations as kind of this niche technology. Where do you need to talk to somebody rather than just type something? Quick service restaurant ordering. Jersey Mike's and Chipotle now. You can actually go up and just talk to a dashboard. It'll place your order, send it back into you, and then you just put your credit card there. And rather than something that would take an order 2 or 3 minutes to process, you can get it done in about 20 seconds. Handling customer service for enterprises. This is something that we used to call them chat bots, but it'd just be like really quickly solve the problems that I'm having. You've got a conversation intelligence platform that can understand exactly the questions you're asking. Keep in mind, we talk differently than we type, and then respond with a perfect solution, especially for troubleshooting. And then I thought this one was interesting. They just landed a new health insurance customer who is actually using this for managing claims, right? If you're actually calling in saying, hey, I got in a car accident, this is exactly what happened, you're now actually having AI solve the problem and process the claim immediately for you, rather than taking down all your information with a human being asking questions for 30 minutes. You can just see the efficiency gains for the enterprise of why they would want to work with a company like SoundHound AI. The ticker on this one, SOUN, and the business doubled its revenue to $169 million in 2025. I see a lot of potential for a company like this as more and more we're not typing things anymore. We're conversing with AI that's out there.
I haven't been following this one at all. This is so interesting and cool. I have CarPlay on my car, and so I'm always using my phone assistant to try to voice activate things, because obviously you should not be looking at your phone while you're driving, but it's so bad. So something like this could also greatly increase safety because you're more likely to use it than look at your phone.
100%. And the parallels are kind of similar to Google, actually. If you're going to type in on your phone, say that you're just, on Google Maps, you say, I want a restaurant that's near me because I'm hungry. Right now, we're typing that in and it shows up Jersey Mike's, and then you can kind of go there and figure it out and everything like that. Just imagine being in your car saying, hey, I'm hungry. What's close by that's under $15 that I can pick up immediately? It will then, using SoundHound, recommend Jersey Mike's, who's part of the platform with them, say, you can get this. What would you like to order? Boom, you place your order. It already knows your credit card, and it's ready for pickup as soon as you drive by there. The full transaction is completed on the SoundHound platform. And things like this, pretty useful. You kind of see the early stages as this gets more and more sophisticated over time.
There's such reduced friction on day-to-day tasks. The health insurance one is really interesting too, because every person in the US, I think, has dealt with that headache. And that would be, if it's doing a good job, would be, which it sounds like it is, so much better.
100%. And last but not least, as we're wrapping this up with a third theme, this is on-demand power. This is another one that data centers, Heather, I feel like it's been ad nauseum now that we talk about how big of a deal AI data centers are and how power hungry they are. How do you even produce enough power for a 5 gigawatt AI data center? There's only a couple even power generating technologies that are even capable of this scale. Renewables are not only intermittent, but you can't produce it when the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing, but they're also limited in scale. You only build a windmill so large, and solar panels take a lot of space out there. And then on the other hand, if you were just going to feed this demand with coal or natural gas, you're going to be giving off a lot of emissions, which are not really environmental friendly at this kind of scale. So how do you come up with the power that is required for these massive data centers, but also make it fit for purpose, right? That we're not feeding this onto the grid. This is specifically fit for purpose for the data center. It's behind the meter, so it's not jacking up the prices that everybody else has to pay for residential power. And it's on demand, right? I can make this modular. I can build this larger and larger if I wanted to add to it. This is kind of the next step that's going to be necessary for future AI infrastructure development. And so the company that I'm really interested in this one is one that we just chatted about just a couple of days ago. Actually, it's the small modular reactors from NuScale Power. Oh, sorry. Let's go ahead and jump in front of this one. We can keep going. That's all right. Let's talk about NuScale. Maybe one more there. Oh, there we go. I jumped ahead. That's okay. NuScale Power is SMR. This is a very, very small company, $31 million in revenue last year, which is just technology. This is just licensing technology at this point. But it wants to build smaller nuclear power plants that are fit for purpose. Their power modules are actually the first and the only small modular nuclear reactors to receive design approval from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The only ones that are out there that are actually approved for design and manufacturing today. And the modules themselves, each are producing about 77 megawatts of power. But a system that has 12 of these put together would get to that gigawatt scale level that we need for a data center, right? That 12 at 77, it's a gigawatt power output for a system that's out there. And the levelized cost of energy for small scale modular nuclear reactors is actually getting to be close to parity with natural gas. As someone who worked in alternative energy and the strategy for this for a large oil company before, you always had natural gas as the gold standard. If you get the cost to produce power right at the same kind of level that you can for natural gas, that's the holy grail. That's where you want to be at to start getting adoption. The construction time is still a bit long, 36 months to construct these right now. We're not just putting together gas generators, we're building nuclear power cores. That takes some time. You got to transfer materials. You got to get them set up on site. It's still a little bit of an extended period of time. But I think that 3 years out, we're going to start seeing some of these actually get to fruition. In fact, the Tennessee Valley Authority, a 7-state area right there in the middle of kind of the United States, has teamed up with Intra One Energy. That's a local utility. And NuScale is the technology partner to sign a strategic agreement to provide up to 6 gigawatts of small modular reactor power for future projects. Based on my rough math, knowing that we haven't ironed out all the details of how much these are going to cost just yet, this appears to be on the order of a $50 billion project, which could take over 10 to 15 to 20 years. Last time I checked, $50 billion is a lot more than 31 million. This could be certainly an order of magnitude and a step change for NuScale. Keeping in mind, you don't have to put all of your eggs in just one basket. When you're working with a really, really big project like that, and you're gaining momentum with something like this, it tends to attract other partners as well. I think that we're going to start seeing some big jumps with NuScale in the near future. And so wrapping this all up, the next big thing to invest in, we talked about quantum computing there a moment ago. We talked about AI agents there for a moment. We talked about on-demand power. We're coming up to the midpoint of the hour here, Heather, but any kind of questions or thoughts about any of those? These are the 3 technologies and the 3 themes I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and we also have kind of for AI agents, but for NuScale and for quantum computing, we have entire shows for those. I'll throw them in the show notes, but if people are really interested, I recommend going through our past lives because that we have really cool deep dives and some really interesting guests, especially for quantum computing, talking about how that's all working. I am excited about all of these, especially the AI agents. I've been building AI agents and they've been for my own work and they've been amazing. And it's cool to see that growing. And I'm interested in SoundHound. I think that's I already love NuScale, so I think that's my next interest.
SoundHound. Okay. SoundHound wins Heather over. If you had to choose between the 3 companies we discussed, Infleqtion, SoundHound, and then NuScale, drop us a note, put in the comments which one of these 3 you might be the most interested in. These are risky stocks, but they're meant to be risky because this is the next big thing to invest in. And a couple reminders here at the end that if you do want to see our actual stock market recommendations, 7investing.com/subscribe is where you can actually see each of our official recommendations and our 5 monthly best buys. We keep those for the membership. That's kind of the line that we draw on what our members are paying for. But again, you can see the scorecard and actually why the average stock recommendation that I've made is now up 106% since the inception in terms of absolute returns, not even including dividends. And then if you wanted to, 7investing.com/newsletter, this is where I'd love to email you the entire presentation. Again, we talked about 3 stocks here today. There's 7 opportunities in the full presentation. I will send you the next big thing presentation to your inbox by Thursday evening. If you join our email list at 7investing.com/newsletter, that's where you can get signed up, and I'll send you a presentation directly. So cool, fun show here today. I always love talking about this. When we did the presentation in Dallas last week, it was a packed room. There was over 45 minutes of Q&A after it. We actually talked even after that and had a little drink and some fun with the audience. But this is a topic that investors are really kind of excited about. It's certainly one that I built my professional career around, and I'm pretty passionate about finding growth style investments that could be 10 baggers going forward. Heather, we're going to come back on Friday and talk a little bit about the best buys that are coming out here for May. This is when I'm going to be publishing my 5 favorite opportunities on the 7 Investing Scorecard. They don't have to be the next big thing, but they do have to be a really, really good buying opportunity. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the themes and how I considered those 5 best buys here on Friday. And then on Monday of next week, we're actually going to be talking about Rocket Lab again. We introduced that. We talked about the first quarter results on last week's show. Now I'm going to sharpen my pencil and really get into the nitty gritty of the valuation, figure out what's baked in as far as expectations for the stock price here today. But Rocket Lab, fantastic company, has been fantastic for investors, has been fantastic for 7 investing. Where do we go from here? What's the next step for this end-to-end space?
I'm really excited for that part too.
Yep. So a lot of good stuff. And then we're actually going to have some guests on the show in June. I'll be publishing the full schedule here shortly, but it's time to start bringing some external opinions in as well. I'm excited to talk to some of these guys once again as a follow-up here and coming up in June. So stay tuned. Again, got some good content coming for you. Stay cool out there if you are in the Northeast and going through the heat spell. If you're down in Houston and you're dealing with the rain, I'm right there with you. But in the meantime, have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again next week.